Welcome to the Divine Radiance Project with your host, Stacey Turner, and co-host, Emma McDonald, where we share all about reclaiming your radiance as women in business, holistic health, money, mindset, and juggling it all around mum life. A place for women to learn about financial independence, entrepreneurship, and balance. From women who aren't scared to speak their mind and their truth. It's time to shine your brightest self and be the lighthouse. Hey guys, welcome back to the Divine Radiance Project podcast. Today I am joined with, please bear with me one moment, Ice Inkhamwong. Now, the reason that I pause here, and I guess we're just going to kick off straight away with this, is because I, up until about 5 minutes ago, have known Ice as Lena. And we have had a brief conversation now about reclaiming your original birth name, which I actually think is a super cool topic. But before we dive into that, I would love for you, Ice, to present yourself, to share a little bit of your background and, what makes you you.
Hi, I'm Ice. And Stacey said she's known me as Lena. I have a story behind that. And I guess, we're just going to sharing it because it's already created, I guess, connections with other women through telling my story. First of all, I want to explain that I am half Thai and I'm a seventh generation Irish, German, Russian, Australian, born seventh generations born in Australia from Europe through the whole, what do you call that when they sent all the criminals over? Well, not really criminals.
I know what you mean, but the term has lost me right now.
Totally. Anyway, my great grandpa got sent here from Ireland as a convict. There we go.
Yeah.
And so I was born in Thailand, and it is also part of Thai culture to name your child, but to also pretty much never call a child their real name. And so I always had this joke, which is you'll never know a Thai person's real name. And the belief behind that is spiritual. So even though it's a Buddhist country, we still keep a lot of our religious beliefs, which heavily involves a lot of magic and spirituality. And part of that spirituality is the belief that if you change child's name and never call that child that name, because infant mortality was so high back in the day, that there was a belief that spirits won't be able to find your child and take their life or take them. So that was the workings around that. And so, when I was born, my dad was not with my mum at the time, as in he was physically out with his sister, showing her Bangkok. And my mum went into labor with me in her hotel room, and she was taken to hospital to give birth to me. And when I was born, the doctor came in a little while after and said, okay, what's her name? With his clipboard, like ready to write down my birth certificate, what's going to be on there. And she went, oh, I don't know yet. I haven't decided yet. My partner hasn't come yet. Like, he hasn't found out that I'm here yet. And he went, oh, no, I need a name right now. And he peered over and looked at me. And my mum is very dark skinned. So we are from the north, and the north are known for having dark skin. We work outside. We're rice farmers. And so for her to be holding a baby who was quite light skinned, and I had the eyes the color of ice. So my eyes to him looked like, very blue, light blue, whitish, like ice color. So that was the first thing that popped into his mind, and he wrote it down and walked out, and that's it. And then my dad came, and my mum explained the situation, and he was like, what? And he was totally outraged that this happened, and they couldn't change it. It was too late. Like, birth certificate was done. And it's not uncommon for Thais to be named after nature, just like...
Oops, we've lost Lena for a moment. Hopefully we'll have her back in a jiffy. But that's a super whirlwind story. And I think she's back. There we go.
Sorry. Yeah. So that's what happened.
That's crazy.
And yeah. And how disempowering too. Like I read about rebirthing and the baby's memories of how their mothers were treated straight after birth, especially by male doctors, and how that can imprint on babies. And anyway, and also just the immediate surrounding behavior of the people around. So that's coming up as important to mention at the moment. I don't know why.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we can totally unpack that, because I don't know how your births have been, but I do know from observing you and from the brief times that we spent together in real life, but that it's been a really empowering conversations, empowering connection, that I can see from how you show up, that you are somebody that is here to break cycles, is here to leave a legacy, is here to empower other people to make a difference in their lives. And so in hearing that story and how, as you say, your mum was treated during probably her birth and then immediately after her birth, not feeling safe, not having her partner there to be her safe space, to be her advocate, like, yeah, there's so much around that's proven now. And I don't know if you've seen the recent documentary that's come out here in Australia, Born at Home, that's just premiered.
Not yet. I have tickets to go to the Ipswich viewing.
Yay! Amazing.
Really
and yeah, it's so good. It's such a good film. I have a little bit of a soft spot for it because I'm in the movie, but also
I saw that.
But also what you're speaking to is such an important topic that I think gets so overlooked, and more of us need to speak up about it, especially if there's people listening to this podcast that haven't thought about this before and were disempowered through their own birth experiences, or as the baby being born to a disempowered mother, and how that shows up. Oh my gosh, goosebumps, how that shows up in our lives as we're children and as we're growing. So I'm sure there's so much more to your story about that specifically, if you feel to go there, but we can see what comes up as we continue to share. So you shared a little bit about like your arrival onto the earth, into Earthside life. So what about now? Who is Ice now? What do you do? Where do you live? Like, who's your family?
Okay, well, I am in Kenmore, which is west of Brisbane in Australia currently. I have an amazing second husband, Andy, and he's like, just amazing as well. And that's another whole story where I wrote, when I left my ex-husband of 10 years, I wrote down a list of things that I wanted to call into my life, and relationship was on the list of things I had to fill out. And I went, well, I'm not having one, so I don't, but I'll fill it out anyway. And I wrote down like 11 traits that this person had to have. And anyway, after I'd met Andy and months later, I looked at my intentions and all of that, and Andy was like all 11. It was crazy. 11, like that's a lot of check boxes, and he was all of them. So that was pretty cool.
Manifestation.
But Andy's also
finest.
Yes, that's the one I'm looking for.
Love it.
Andy is incredibly magical as well. He's so tapped into his magic, which really helps me. And one of the main intentions of manifesto things I asked for in a partner was somebody who could grow with me and continuously evolve with me until we left Earth. And we both do that, and we dance in, like, he struggles with something and I'm the rock, and then I'll struggle with something, and because he's already worked through the last thing and he's in this great space, he's able to be there for me, and we just like constantly dance and grow together, and it's just so beautiful. I have 3 children, a 9-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 2-year-old. And back onto birth, I did give birth to my 9-year-old in a private hospital with an epidural. And if nobody knows what that means, it's a injection to the spine that completely numbs the body from the stomach down. So I was laying on my back, numb from tummy down, and I was just totally led by all the staff. I had no idea. I didn't read about pregnancy. I wasn't even into yoga or like starting my, I guess, spiritual journey at that time. I just knew nothing, and I just truly believed that all these people knew better than me. They're qualified, And so I just follow along and nod. And so I couldn't feel any, like, when it was time to push, I was told when to push, and then he was pulled out via forceps, and then he quickly got like taken off, and then I was carted to the shower, and it was just odd. And then he was put into like a little wheelie thing next to my hospital bed, and I couldn't sleep with him, and that to me at the time intuitively felt so wrong, that all I wanted, like, I believed, my whole body believed, your baby needs to be on you nonstop. Like, that's so odd that they're put over there in a box. But so I had that experience, and then with my 2 girls, I decided to give birth to them at home, being much more informed, being much more confident in my body, being surrounded by a lot more positive stories and people. Yeah, so that was a completely different birth story and really nice. And I totally recommend it. There's nothing like giving birth in a bath and then hopping out into your own bed and then having your husband give you a dairy-free, gluten-free almond magnum. It's like the best thing. I don't know, everything tastes amazing after birth, and like a cup of tea. And it was just so nice to go straight from, a pool to my bed and be totally fussed over by everybody. And like Andy even spoon fed me, and Andy was doing Reiki on me while I was like going through my birth as well, the whole time, holding space. And it was cool. It was
so good. Yeah. You're speaking my language, especially when you started going the gluten-free, dairy-free. I'm like, yep, I hear ya.
Yeah, I had to mention that.
Yes.
It's not just a normal magnum.
No.
Well, they have this option now.
It exists. We're not as deprived as we used to be.
It's really good.
Yes. And such a powerful kind of comparison, right? I mean, hearing you share that, it would be so many women's, or that your first experience, it would be so many women's experience of all they know for birth. Because, even people that are educated going into the hospital system, it's not the system that is, it's the system that's broken. It's not the people in the system that are trying to do one over on you. Like they truly believe that they're doing the right thing by you because it's what they know. But we know, having done both variations, that there is a different way, that there is a potentially better way, and we get to remain the expert or the empowered individual in that process. So I'm really excited that you got to experience that, and hopefully found healing and peace with that contrast.
100%. And to be honest with you, when I did a hypnobirthing course, which is available online, like anywhere around the world, it's awesome. I highly recommend it. Before I had my first daughter, when I decided I was giving birth at home, and there was a sheet you could fill in that was part of before you went along and did anything more, which was your trauma if you had any birth before this. And I honestly thought there wasn't anything traumatic that made me go, oh, like, but when I was answering the questions, I just burst out crying, because I actually didn't realize how much trauma I had kept stored in my body from that experience, simply because nobody yelled at me or nothing dramatic happened, but the body told me, like, we actually didn't like this. This was actually really disempowering. So that unpacked a lot of stuff that I didn't realize that I had, even though I thought that birth was relatively normal.
Yes, 100%, 100%.
And it's normal until you realize it's not. Hey.
Exactly. And I can 100% relate to that, because I didn't think I'd had a traumatic hospital birth either. But when you're preparing for a home birth and all the fears come up around, well, I had to be in hospital in case something went wrong, was kind of the story that I had going on the first time around. And my husband's fears around, he was the one that didn't want me to birth at home the first time around. But then after the experience we had in the hospital, where it was a little bit more traumatic for my end, and we don't need to unpack that now, but just even straight after, there were little things that happened where I was like, that wasn't cool. Like, no one asked permission before they did that thing, or the way that something was said to me. Like, an example of it was, you've been in labor too long, you should just go get your baby cut out now.
Yeah.
Like, just those sorts of throwaway comments when a woman is, psychologically in that liminal phase. We're so absorbent in that moment, like whatever is said in
Yeah.
that space lands into our subconscious and gets imprinted into our physical body. And that process that you spoke about, the lessons that we learn through that birth process set us up to be the parent that we're going to be. They literally teach us the lessons through whatever labor experience we're going to be. It's like a soul contract that we get given through that birth experience to raise the child that's about to be born. And when that gets taken away from us, like that's disempowering, not just through the birth experience, but into like motherhood as well, and trying to look after your child, your baby. So of course I've got emotional like 15 minutes into the podcast.
Yeah.
So anyway, let's go back to,
that's what we're here for.
Exactly the deep stuff. Let's go back to your kiddos. So you've got 3 beautiful kids, and then you also have another creation or another baby that you birthed that we kind of connected through. So do you want to talk us through your business?
Yes, so I have a business in Australia called Australian Ceremonial Cacao, which birthed through me, through spirits, through dreaming, back in, I think, like early 2016. And that story began, the story began from the day I was born, because it just reminds me how everything is planned. So when I was 7 years old, we moved to Australia from Thailand when I was 6.5. And then when I was 7, my dad decided to drive from Adelaide to Darwin through Uluru, like on the way, because he's one of those people. He's a traveler. And we climbed Uluru at that time, which was completely a normal thing to do back in those days. There wasn't even a sign. Nobody even knew that this was not what the Aboriginal people, the Arrernte people, wanted, because simply nobody cared, let's be honest. And so we climbed, and then I never thought anything of it until I turned 30, or before I turned 30. And I knew something was coming up before my 30th birthday. I was really excited, and I didn't know why. And I bought tickets for my ex-husband for his birthday present to go to Uluru for me and my son. And we went, and while I was on the plane, I heard this voice loudly, like outside of my ears. And it happens every now and then, like a dead person will talk to me and it's really loud, or a spirit will talk to me and it's really loud. So this time it was a spirit, and they said, "You've come here to apologize, and once you've done that, you'll know your next steps." And I was like, "Oh, what's my next steps?" Okay. So we land, and I was like, oh, I had this idea. I had to apologize at the rock, and we didn't go to the rock as soon as we arrived, of course. So I'm like, okay, I'm not going to apologize yet. I've got this like scene in mind. And so that night I had all these dreams of every naughty thing I'd ever done in my entire life, that like the spirits were showing, like, "We know what you've done," kind of thing. I was like, oh, okay. So next day we finally get to the rock, and I was standing next to it, and I could see it breathing. I could see it going. I could see it inhaling and exhaling. And then I said, "Okay, spirits, I know you're watching me." And I could feel their glare, and it's like, I don't know, all of the air is consciousness with them, and they're watching. And I could feel the concentration of them watching me. And I went, okay, well, I just really want to say that I'm sorry for climbing when I was 7. And if you can forgive me, please come and see me in my dreams. And then I just burst out crying in this tour group. And honestly, I was like snotting and everything. I was bawling my eyes out. Like all this, I don't know, pressure and stuff was coming off. And so 10 days later, I'm back in Brisbane, and I dream that I'm back next to the rock around a fire with all Aboriginal women. And there were 2 that were standing there looking at me, and there was a younger girl who would have been, I'm thinking 18, and an elder, and she was painted, her breasts were painted, and she was holding a what in the Arrernte is called a piti, which is like a coolamon. That is a bark cut from a tree, which Aboriginal women use as a basket for carrying babies and bushaka food. And so they're describing that the women here are cooking emu for me, and they're cutting it into 6 pieces for me. And this is like them, embracing me and accepting my apology. And when all of this is done, I'm kind of floating out of the scene, and the elder and the girl is just smiling at me the whole time, and I wake up and I'm just crying. And so around about that time, I'm doing Reiki, and my teacher is a Aboriginal elder, and there were other elders there, including Maori elders, and I was in a group with an Aboriginal and a Maori elder, and they were doing, like, it was my turn, on the bed, and they go, "Oh, I see," and they described the two ladies, like they described the elder and they described the younger girl, and they're there and they're going, "They've got a present for you. They've got the piti, the kulama, and they're giving it to me." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And then Rainbow Snake was there, and they're amazing seers, these two ladies. And I thought, okay, what am I going to do with an empty bowl? Thank you, but awesome. Now I have a spiritual bowl. And yeah, that was, you got to have a sense of humor with this stuff.
Yeah.
And so I went to my first cacao ceremony that some Americans came over and held in Brisbane, and it wasn't like what I expected. I expected more emotion, but it was quite dull and non-eventful, because I was expecting to cry, and I didn't. And I was like, okay, this is quite gentle, this is different. And I took a bag home and I continued the ceremony at home. And this was around the time where I wanted to leave my ex-husband, but for 6 years, but I just couldn't do it. Like, I couldn't say the words that I wanted to leave. And there was a lot of, I don't want to upset my dad. My dad paid, 10 grand for our wedding. I don't want to be a disappointment again. I don't want to do anything to upset anyone. What about the things everyone will say? What about the friends I'll lose? What about my son? Oh, I don't want to do it near Christmas because it's Christmas. I don't want to do it near his birthday because then it's too traumatic. And I just kept making things up, and so I knew it was coming to a head soon. Like, everything was bubbling up. And so I was sitting outside doing ceremony, which turned out to just become my safe zone, my safe space. And I was also learning one of the most important things that cacao has ever taught me, which was to become my own friend, my own lover, my own cheerleader, my own parent, my own mother and father, just my own supporter. And so as I kept going, and I was meditating one day outside, and I said, help me, tell me what to do. Tell me where you want me to go. I don't know what to do with my life. And I've struggled with suicide and suicidal thoughts from the age of 12. And I'm just like, why am I here? And I'll have these things every year where I just crash, and I just ask myself, why the fuck am I alive? Am I allowed to swear?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. And because if there's no reason, I don't want to be here anymore. So I was asking this question, and one day I was like, tell me what to do. And then the bowl came up in my mind, the Coolamon. And I was like, okay, what is with this spiritual bowl? What do you want me to do with it? If you gave me a real bowl with fruit in it, that'd be like something I could do something with. But it's an empty spiritual bowl. And then I clearly got the Aboriginal elder from my dream say to me, well, why don't you look into the bowl? I didn't think of that. So I meditated and I saw her handing me the bowl, and I took it, from her, and I looked in it, and I saw cacao beans. And then cacao spirit like whooshed in, and she was like, you want to know what to do? Take my hand and I'll show you. And I went, okay. So off we go. It's like the next, 3 days and 2 nights, I've just been shown like everything, the website, what to do, look for cacao paste, talk to these people, get a logo, do this, do that. And it was like, even when I was in bed at night, it would take I don't know if I ever slept, because it was like just showing me, just continuous nonstop streaming for 3 days straight.
Wow.
And so, I followed through, and now, like, I'd say that my mission is to just pay it forward. We're in an amazing generation where, and I think they say since 1997, but I'd say earlier, because obviously I'm older than that, have come in intentionally through the call for help, through the call for volunteers to come to Earth and change its frequency, make it a better place, make the decisions, don't fall for the lies, just make empowered decisions to eventually create a world of freedom and like genuine community and to thrive. And so all of us came streaming in, and we're doing things in so many different ways. And that includes the people who think that they're not doing much. That includes, mums who think they're not doing anything except being at home and raising their kids. And I know I've had moments like that myself, where I think I'm not doing anything. That is huge, because those kids need that place that somebody who is aware of what's going on can give them, as opposed to a place of, say, the generation before that constantly just pushed the children around based on what they were being told to do. A lot of us are not doing what we're being told to do anymore.
100%. 100%. I think actually, thank you for sharing all of that. That is magical, like literally pure magic. And I know you used that word before, and it might be a bit foreign to some of the listeners, but just, I guess, listening and paying attention with an open heart and an open mind, because there is magic everywhere, and you're proof of it. And I've had similar experiences, maybe not for as many days in a row, but I will get these downloads. And it's just when you come into that quiet, especially with the support of Mother Cacao or something like that, that can hold you in that space, and you open your heart and you open your mind to it, like so much can come in, but you have to be open to it, right? Like if you're already kind of shut off to it and you're second guessing it and you're not trusting your intuition, you're not trusting that connection, then you're not going to believe the thoughts that are coming through. But I think I caught you, like the reason I wanted to have you on the podcast was actually because I caught the end of one of your lives where you were sharing about conscious parenting and some of the things that you can actually, like language is so important, and we speak to our children can be so powerful in not only breaking generational trauma and ancestral cycles that need to shift and need to change. And I love what you said about, we are here to not be told what to do. We are here, breaking those chains and going, there is a different way. And the star seeds that are coming through now are literally, they need our support to change the planet, to change the future. And that might sound a bit over the top for some people, but maybe we can, open your eyes and help you wake up and see that if we don't do something to change what's happening, nobody will. So if we want there to be a future for our children, then we have to be the forerunners in those changes, which I really love. So I love that you mentioned your mission is to pay that forward. Do you feel like there's a vision that you hold for where your business is going or where your life is going that is part of that impact and that legacy that you want to leave?
Well, that's what's been coming up for me of late. And to be honest, I think that my vision will be to invite somebody else in who has more capacity to drive Australian ceremonial cacao out into the world, simply because I have 3 children and I'm one person, and I would like to be a part of it, but I'm not this mum like with a son who's with me week on, week off anymore, where I could do as much as I could. And I don't know if you've found this, but just having my 3rd child, I've had a lot of, I think I had a bit of postnatal like depression where I just got overwhelmed. I had postnatal overwhelm, I think. Like I was overwhelmed so much with too many things. And as much as I want to be out there physically around people more, at this time I'm not capable. So I would like to share ACC with others who maybe have like a lot of energy, or maybe a part of it is for me to create it so that somebody in, I don't know what generation they will be, but who can go out there in a certain way. Like I feel like it's going to be shared. I feel like this mission is going to be shared with other people who have a similar view but their own flavor. Yeah.
There you go. So is this like putting that out to the world for the first time? If anyone's hearing this and they're like, oh my gosh, I want to get into ACC and present you like, yeah, I'm interested in helping you with your business, or so reach out to Ice
Yeah,
and
totally.
have that conversation for sure. And
yeah, definitely.
Hearing you speak about, it was potentially postpartum depression and whatever you felt, whatever feelings you had were valid and real. And I guess from a holistic health coach perspective, it could have been postpartum depletion and lack of support that is expressed in depressive-like feelings.
Okay.
So, yeah, in finding ways to top you up, to support your adrenals, to get the support network. Not saying you need to do more, but it's so great to have that insight and awareness into, like I don't have capacity for that right now. Boundaries are going to need to go in place, and learning how to navigate. Like, I've birthed this project, and now, who's the people that's going to take this legacy on, and I still get to be a part of this. So I love that you have that insight and that awareness. And you never know, right? As our kids get older, I feel like when we focus and pour back into ourselves, once we aren't breastfeeding anymore, once our brains start functioning a bit more clearly again, and they don't feel like cotton wool.
Get sleep.
Get some sleep. Yeah, for the first time in for you probably 9 years. That start to like shift and rewire, and you reclaim who you are outside of mum. And it doesn't have to wait until the children have left the nest. Like, there are little things that we can do to reclaim those snippets of our identity. And maybe your daily ceremony is part of that, like coming home to yourself and like, yes, I'm mum,
definitely.
but also in this moment, I'm just me. Connecting to spirit. And then outside of that, you may find that you'll birth something else, or as our kids get older and they've got their own interests, I think the challenges change, but the demand on us changes, or not that it gets less, but just the way that they need us is so different. And we'll get to kind of investigate other areas that interest us, or you can lean back into ACC a little bit more in a different way, in a different capacity. So I love that.
Yeah.
Piece. I think that's really cool.
Thank you. It's a lot of learning, and I think it's a lot of learning about, like, I see a lot of, especially in the world of the internet, seeing a lot of mums in business who are all like powerhouses, and I'm just like, that's not me. I'm not going to charge through my exhaustion or even hide that I have it. Like, this is mum in business. When I'm exhausted, I'm exhausted. I don't pretend that I'm not. If I can't turn up, then I can't turn up, and I don't pretend that I can. I don't force myself to. And this takes me back to, I guess, my mum's birth, an expectation. And I've also put a lot of false expectations on myself and how I turn up for business and life. And I think even cacao is teaching me that everything, there's flow, there's time, there's no rush. And the cacao, whoever needs to find Australian ceremonial cacao will find it. And that's how it's always happened. The right people always find it, because it's so energetically infused with such a particular energy. It's not for everyone. And for some people who perhaps force themselves to buy Australian ceremonial cacao because, it's some trendy thing to do, or whatever it is, if the agenda doesn't match, like coming into true home, true authenticity, that they're the people who send me like really interesting emails, very triggered with receiving it. So the cacao has its own energy, and it's very particular in how it serves the world. And so she is her own thing, and she's not all just me like on top of her. It's not. It's her able to come through me and serve the world. And she's also helping me and loving me on my way. Like, I don't think there's any person who truly creates a cacao to share with the world for whatever their own intention is for it, who isn't continuously growing and evolving and learning about themselves with it. And with cacao being the heart medicine, heart opening medicine, A lot of us who are involved with it are here to also learn a lot about our own hearts and what's around it. And it's a huge part of our own human evolution and growth and path here in Swan.
That's so cool. That's so cool. And I feel like, I mean, you've probably noticed I come and go. Like I've still got a bag of it that I've had for a long time. And if I'm running women's circles, I'll put together a concentrate for the women to enjoy. But yeah, there's times where I'm not in alignment with it. And then there's times that I come back into alignment with it and I'll randomly tag you in something. You'll be like, oh, thank you. And I guess you just trust that, Stacey's into it again this month and then disappears.
Yeah, the cacao will call you from the cupboard. And that is what I tell people. If you hear the word cacao, like if my cacao is in your cupboard, and this happens to everybody I've spoken to, including myself, and you hear cacao, or you're feeling it, it doesn't stop like knocking on the door unless you're really shoving it away continuously. But she'll keep coming because there's an intelligence in the plant that she will sense you in the house that you might be needing, or a message comes through only if your vibration is at that like frequency that she can offer, for you to get that message. Like she will call you. It's like Jumanji. That's what's coming up in my mind. But like I'm all loving Jumanji.
Love it. That's so good. That's awesome. My intention, even though there's so much more I could unpack with you, my intention is to keep these episodes short. So we'll start to wrap up and then we'll get feedback from the listeners, and I'm sure there's more that they will want to hear from you, and we'll get you back on for another chat. But the final question that I love to ask everybody is, if time and resources and energy and sleep deprivation weren't a thing, what would you be doing right now?
I'd be traveling a lot. Yeah, I'd be going to sacred sites if I could with my kids. I'd be going to the countries that my ancestors came from, where I've never been, like Ireland, and going to the magical places of, the European places, and touching the earth and just getting in touch with certain ley lines and, sacred sites around the world, and, just traveling.
That sounds amazing. Excuse my doorbell there. It doesn't just ring once, it keeps going. So yeah, that's just life. That's just,
I didn't even hear it.
How we roll. Oh, there you go. Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
It's really good. Well done, Zoom. So, okay, traveling, that's awesome. I love that. Especially as a family, creating those core memories and just spending quality time together. I feel like we're potentially a little bit similar in that quality time is one of our core values, and family is really important to us. We're not the sort of people that want to shove our families off to go and hang out with other people. So that's really beautiful that you would want to do that with them.
Yeah.
Love that.
It's just a world of wonder out there.
Yeah. So much.
And children, they don't forget.
And they're so receptive to, especially being in a spiritual household even more, but they're so receptive to the energy and the frequencies that are around, and they can learn and integrate so much when they experience these things. It's so cool.
Yeah.
So Ice, if people want to grab a bag, if cacao is calling them and they would like to get in touch with you or ask questions or grab a bag of Australian ceremonial cacao, where can they find you on social media or your website?
Yeah, so my website is www.australianceremonialcacao.com, and it's the same tag for Instagram, which is just Australian Ceremonial Cacao.
Perfect. I will put it in the show notes to make it easy for linking so people can just click on through. Is there anything else that you want to share as parting words with our audience before we wrap up?
Oh my gosh, parting words would just be like, believe in yourself. And I think if you have difficulty in doing that, start writing I am statements, which are statements of truth. They're completely different to affirmations. So affirmations are things that haven't happened yet, but I am statements, which is what you would have probably heard on the end of that Conscious Parenting Live. Statements of truth are truth. So I am valuable, I am valued, I am lovable, I am smart, I am kind. They're statements of truth because nobody can come along and say to your child, well, that's not true. They're not lovable. They're not smart. They're not kind. So these are statements of truth, and they're completely different to affirmations. And I totally recommend having them written on your bathroom window and getting your kids to say it with you, and you saying it with you, and actually saying the words and allowing each sentence to settle in and see where you're at with it. So believing in ourselves can be a journey in itself. And I think it's always a good one to have, especially when negative thoughts come in. Replace it with just saying those statements. Yeah.
I really loved receiving that. And I think little pat on my back to myself as a testament to, yes, give me all of those words and I'm integrating them as you're saying them and breathing them in. I love it. I love it so much. So yeah, if you heard Ice sharing those words and you're like, that doesn't feel good for me, then that is where your work is. That is where your work is to go and do. I love that so much. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much for joining me today. It was so nice to catch up with you. And yeah, I'm really excited for this episode to be shared with the world. And yeah, just hearing your story. Everyone has a story, but there's something so powerful in women connecting and getting to hear each other's stories. So thank you for sharing yours with us.
Thank you, Stace. Thanks for having me.
No worries. And that's a wrap for today's episode. Listen, if you love what you heard here today, I would love for you to leave a super quick rating and a review. This helps the show get discovered by new people that need to hear what we have to share. Be sure to take a screenshot of today's episode and shout us out on Instagram, and we will shout you right back. You can find us on Instagram handles It's Stacey Turner and the.emma.mcdonald. If you'd like to find additional resources or work with either of us, then DM us on one of these handles today.